Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. This is the first part of the brush settings tutorial series in Autodesk Sketchbook. In this part, I will teach you the basics of the brush library, and I will also go over the basic and advanced settings of the standard brush type. To the left of the screen, you have a brush slider with a few brushes. You may not have the same brushes as mine because I customized the slider to fit my needs. You can access the brush library by tapping at this icon. In here, you get access to all the brushes. The brushes are divided into groups to help you find the brush that you are looking for. I have moved the brushes that I use to the basic set to get faster access to them. Changing the placement of a brush is very easy. You can do it by clicking on the brush that you want to move and drag it to the place you want to move it to. When selecting a brush, you get this icon at the top right of its group. And when the icon is blue, it means that the group is shown in the brush slider that you have outside of the library. You can choose any group to be shown in the slider by selecting any brush in that group and then click on this icon. As you can see now, this group is shown in the slider. Right at the top of this menu, you have the settings icon. When tapping on it, you get access to the settings menu. Here you can choose the brush type. In this video, I will go over the settings of the standard type and will leave the other types for the remaining parts of the series. Underneath the brush types, you have the basic and the advanced settings. In the basic settings, you can adjust the size and the opacity of the brush. You can also do that with these sliders. If you want more settings, you can choose the advanced settings option. The first option is the pressure. Here you can change the size, opacity, and the flow with pressure sensitivity. A lot of people think that the flow and opacity are the same thing, but they are not. When having both the flow and opacity at 100%, the colors overlap each other completely. And if we reduce the opacity to 30% and keep the flow at 100%, you get a 30% transparency when using overlapping strokes. As you can see, no matter how many brush strokes you add, the opacity doesn't change from 30%. However, if you lift the stylus and then color over it again, then a 30% opacity gets added to the color. The difference between the flow and the opacity is that when lowering the flow, the transparency of the color gets increased when using multiple strokes without lifting the stylus or your finger. The next option is the stamp, which is more useful if the brush have a shape or a texture. In here you can change the spacing, the rotation, and the roundness of the brush. In the rotation dynamics, you have three options, which are off, rotate to stroke, and controlled by stylus tilt. I normally use the rotate to stroke option because it makes the brush rotate with your movement. The other two options give the same result. Here you can adjust the scale of the brush, which is the ratio between the original size and the size displayed on the canvas. When increasing it, it gives a bigger size than the selected one. The nib option is very important. Here you can change the hardness of the brush. When increasing the hardness, your strokes will have hard edges, and when reducing it, the edges will be more blurry. To add or change the shape of the brush, you click on this dot and then tap at the brush box. Then choose the shape that you want. When tapping on the with color icon, the color will be removed from the brush. And when pressing on ignore edge icon, you get 100% hardness. However, if you want to change the hardness, you have to deactivate this option. You can also add a texture by tapping on here. Adjusting the spacing and hardness is very important when using a texture. You can adjust the scale of the brush, which I normally keep as default, and you can also change the brightness that I either keep on default or increase it a bit. When having the contrast at 100%, you get the halftone effect, which means that the texture will be shown even when using multiple overlapping strokes, and the effect gradually decreases when decreasing the contrast. There is also the per tip option, which I honestly don't understand the math behind, but you can see it looks like when activating it, you can adjust the depth with pressure sensitivity. The depth determines how much of the texture is shown through the stroke. Oh, I almost forgot to say, you can invert the texture settings by tapping on invert. When adding a texture or shape, you can adjust the stem settings to get the look that you want. The last option is the randomness option, and in it, you can adjust the randomness of the size, opacity, flow, rotation, and spacing of the brush. Alright guys, this was it for the video. Don't forget to like if you think it was helpful. Thanks for watching and see you on another video.